between Magnus Carlsen and aronain. Magnus Carlsen, playing the white pieces, started out with c4, the English, g6, knight c3, c5, and we have somewhat of a symmetrical English. g3, bishop g7, putting the bishop on the long diagonal. Bishop to g2, also putting a bishop on the lower diagonal. Knight to c6. It is sort of symmetrical. It is very symmetrical, actually. a3 and d6. Rook to b1. The reason is he wants to support b4. After a4, it stops. b4, so Magnus plays e3. That is a good move because the knight is coming to e2. Let's see what happened. Aronain played e5, knight g to e2, playing castling, knight g to e7, castling, and now g3, playing bishop to d2 or something else. Rook to b8, bishop to d2, bishop to e6, putting the bishop on a good diagonal. Now knight to d5. If the knight takes, then the pawn takes forking. If the bishop takes, the bishop takes. And the bishop is very active. So b5 was played, trying to get out of the pin, and after rook takes, queen to a4, queen to b8. The threat is bishop takes d5. So knight to c7. And the reason the queen cannot take the knight is because the rook will be hanging. Queen takes c7, queen takes b5. Now Magnus Carlsen is not doing well. Rook to b8, queen to a4, bishop to b3, queen to h4. It may seem that aronain is down the exchange, but aronain can strike back. Bishop to c2, threatening the pawn, so the queen has to move and defend the pawn, because the pawn is very important. So after queen to c4, bishop to b3. I wonder why aronain did not take the bishop, the rook. After bishop to b3, queen to c1, queen to b6, rook to e1, and now d5. Now look at these pawns. These pawns are massive. They are controlling this. They are controlling this square, this square, this square, this square, this square. And the bishop is controlling a lot of squares. So after knight to c3, rook to d8, e4. I thought Carlsen would have played something more interesting, like if the pawn did not do that, then after d4, knight to d5, knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, rook takes, bishop to h6, bishop to f6, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, and aronain is down so much. Queen to d1, bishop to e7, h4. Queen to b7, king to h2, f6. Planning king to f7. Queen to e2, knight to d8, bishop back to d2, bishop to f3, attacking the queen. The queen comes to f1, and now a4, because a moment ago the bishop was attacking the pawn. So after a4, queen to h3. The queen now has a good grip on the diagonal. h5. And now look at this bishop. It's about to come and attack the queen. So after bishop to a5, I don't know what Carlsen's plan is to do, but after knight to f7, queen to e6, bishop to d5, queen to h3, queen to b5, bishop to c7, queen to d3, and after g4, you cannot take the pawn because the queen is on free. So after queen to d2, king to g1, defending the pawn and threatening pawn takes pawn. So after king to g1, I believe bishop to e6, queen to g2, takes on g4, rook to c1, king to g7, bishop to b6, and now c4, threatening the pawns, like attacking, trying to queen. Queen to c6, attacking the bishop, and now threatening queen takes pawn. So the queen cannot take the bishop, of course that would be bad. After takes g3, bishop to h3, threatening queen to g2, and after queen to f3, threatening queen to f2, queen takes b2, attacking the bishop, bishop to a7, queen to b3, and if queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, and it's just a pawn. So queen takes queen, pawn takes queen, bishop takes d4, sacrifice the bishop the only way. Bishop takes a3, rook to a1, bishop to b4, and look at this bishop. It is a monster. Rook e to b1, pawn takes d4, and the threat is bishop to d7. So after rook takes a4, bishop to c5, rook to a5, bishop to b6, rook to b5, bishop to c7. The threat is bishop to e6, defending the pawn. So that's why rook takes b3, bishop to e5, king to f2, knight to d6, and the threat is knight to e4 check. So after king to f3, bishop to f6, threatening bishop to d5 check, and it's attacking the rook. So rook to a3, bishop to d5 check, king to e2, knight to b5, and if the rook takes the knight, the bishop comes and forks, and black is better. So rook to a5, and then the knight came into c3, king to f2, and now d3. I wondered what would happen if the knight took the rook. After d3, rook takes d5, that's the only way. Knight takes d5, and there's a very amount of threats. So after rook to b7 check, bishop blocks, king to f3, king to h6, rook to b3, bishop takes g3, rook takes d3, knight to f4, rook to d8, knight to h5, king to g4, and the threat is rook to h8, check, winning the knight. So after f5 check, king to h3, it is winning for black, but Carlsen is not resigning. Bishop to e5, threatening knight to f4, check, and winning. So after rook to a8, bishop to f6, rook to a6, attacking the bishop, king to g7, rook to a7, check, king to f8, rook to b7, bishop to b7, rook to a7, king to g7, king to f7, rook to a6, knight to f6, and looks like a draw, but aronain managed to defeat Carlsen. King to g3, knight to e4, check, king to h3, bishop to c5, rook to c6, bishop to d6, rook to a6, king to g7, rook to a6, bishop a8, bishop to e5, rook to a7, king to h6, rook to b7, knight to f6, rook to e5, attacking the bishop, knight to g4, threatening knight to f2, check, and also defending the bishop. Rook to a7, bishop to f6, rook to f7, king to h5, and Carlsen, I believe he resigned here because there is no way that the rook will check him anymore, and leaving aronain won this game.